Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about something. If you have solar panels and you want to mount your solar panels on the roof of your vehicle, like your van, how do you do that and keep it from leaking? Well, what you need to do is, some people will buy flexible solar panels and tape them down. A lot of other people swear by tape if you have large glass plated solar panels like mine. No offense to those people, but I would not trust a piece of tape to hold on something that weighs 35 to 40 pounds on the roof of my vehicle. So what I'm going to end up doing, and what a lot of you will do, is you'll put your panels up, you'll drill a hole through your roof. How do you keep that from leaking into your roof? Well, there's a couple ways. One, gob a massive amount of RTV silicone all the way over it, around it, underneath it, whatever. Unfortunately, a lot of silicone doesn't stick well to painted surfaces, especially metal painted surfaces. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how to make gaskets using silicone to put under your solar panels to help stop it from leaking and make sure it doesn't leak. Now you can do this pretty easily. What you're going to need is a couple pieces of newspaper, some cardboard. Now what I did was I cut down a cardboard box. Now if you need it thicker than one piece of cardboard, you can always put two pieces together. Now this will be about ½ an inch. So this would take forever to dry. But most people, if you have the right piece of cardboard, this is about ¼ inch. This should be plenty for most people. Unfortunately, I'm having to do this in the house because the way my camcorder has to be set up. But if you want to know if your cardboard is thick enough, here's a general rule of thumb to follow. Here's a single piece. And here are 3 nickels, one on top of the other. And if you set that next to the cardboard, it's right there, right at the edges. 3 nickels is pretty much the thickness you can get away with. Now, having 2 of them together, this is how thick that is. And here's the 3 nickels. I don't know if you can see them. Right there. And this is just one piece. And this one piece is the width of 3 nickels placed one on top of the other. Like I said, if you want to make it thicker, you can take your cardboard, take 2 pieces, tape it together, then use a razor knife to cut out the inside. Once they're taped together, then you cut it. Then you have your good edges, and then you fill it with silicone like I'm going to show you. Now since I don't need something this thick, at least not right now, and I really want it to dry in the next couple weeks, because remember, the thicker it is, the longer it's going to take to dry. Now to do this, make sure you have a flat surface, some paper. Now I would advise not cutting it this big. What I would do is I would actually, if I were you, cut it more of a square instead of a rectangle. That way you could use something like printer paper. But since I cut a little bit long, I actually have to use a regular sheet of paper, newspaper here. I have a piece of newspaper here. And it's just, you can see it's just a small piece. If you're only going to use one piece, you don't need this electrical tape or some type of tape. But what you will need, a caul gun and a tube of silicone. Now what I'm going to use is some very cheap transparent all-purpose silicone. This is indoor outdoor, window, door, and siding, and it says waterproof. Now I did open the cap, but I haven't opened the inside yet. Make sure you have a big hole on the end. Now remember, you may want to do this outside. Unfortunately, the way my camera has to hook up to my laptop for me to record these videos, I can't do this outside. This is going to really smell, so you may want to do this outside. Just put it on a flat surface. Make sure you have it somewhere where it can dry out of the weather. And remember, it's always good to have too much than too little. And just start gooing the silicone in place. And I actually really should have opened my other tube, but this will give you the general idea of how to make this. Make sure you get all the silicone in there you can. Just go back and forth, fill it in however. And you're going to see places where the silicone doesn't fill in. That's really no big deal. And I actually think one tube will do this for me. But it's getting really tough. There we go. And remember, it's better to have too much than too little. Now this will, of course, go over the edges, which is fine. Okay, there we go. That's pretty much it. As you can see, the bottom broke out of my silicone, which this caul gun of mine tends to do that a lot. Put that there. Now I'm going to wipe off the tip. Make sure there's nothing on the back. And it smells like really bad. And you're probably going, well, why am I wiping it off? Well, you're going to use your silicone tube unless you have something else to roll with. And I'm going to use my silicone tube that's empty to roll this out and smooth it down. You put your piece of paper on the top. Take your silicone tube. roll it. And what you're doing is you're basically using the cardboard just as a frame for your silicone. Just roll it back and forth. Try to keep the paper as good as possible. There we go. And it doesn't matter if it goes over the outside edge. There's no big deal. You can trim that down later. Okay. And let's get rid of this. Now, put this somewhere where it can dry. I'd let it dry for a good couple weeks, a week and a half to 2 weeks. Once it's dry, you pull your paper off. If it won't come off, what you do is you just take this whole piece here and here, throw it in some hot water. The paper will start to let loose. And then you can just peel it or wipe it or scrub the paper off, however you want to do it. And that will give you a flat seal, a big chunk of silicone, basically this thick. Then you take a razor knife and you can cut your silicone down into squares, rectangles, whatever you need it to be to go underneath your solar panels. Now, mine is a rectangle shape. It's like 1 inch by 2 inch. So, and I need 16 of them. So I figured with the way I have this made right now, that will take care of that for me. Now remember, if you make it thicker, you have to let it dry longer. Don't try a lot of things people do online. They tell you put it on hot water with hydrogen peroxide, or yes, you can take a hairdryer to this on low heat. Go back and forth to try to get it to tack up quicker. But unfortunately, if you do that, a lot of the times the center won't dry. And when you try to cut it, then it'll still be gooey on the inside. But that's it. That's how to make a homemade DIY gasket for under your solar panels for the roof of your vehicle. Well, before I do this, before I leave this, let's say this is your silicone, okay, that you just did. To cut it, you of course can use a razor knife. Be very careful. Silicone's hard to cut when it is dried. Now if you're going to cut it, I advise you, if you're going to use a razor knife, mark your silicone, use a ruler with a metal edge on it, put the ruler down, say this is your ruler, push your ruler down and use the edge of the ruler, heat up the blade a little bit, put a lighter to it, something. Now, okay, say this is our piece of silicone, say this is dry, this is our piece of silicone we're going to put up underneath our solar. Alright? I advise you to use nuts and bolts. You can use self-tapping screws. That's up to you. But what you're mainly using this for is it's going to act like a rubber washer or a rubber gasket. Think of a water hose. Putting a water hose on a faucet, even if you have the rubber gasket in there, if you just really hand tighten it with your fingers, you turn that water on, it's going to spray everywhere. you usually have to get a good crank down on that, and that washer in there pushes down, expands out, and it makes a watertight seal. You're basically doing the same thing with this. Now say this piece is your silicone you cut off for up underneath your solar panels. The best thing to do is drill a hole in it a little bit smaller than your bolt that you're going with. Screw the bolt through it. Then when you put it through your roof, and here's my solar panels, here's the gasket, and here's the roof. When you put it through the roof and you tighten it down, this is going to expand, okay? I hope you can see all this. It's really hard for me to see. My laptop's behind me. But if you're unsure about the size of your cardboard box, remember, a good size to start with is 3 nickels. I don't know if you can see that. Sitting on top of each other. Just 3 nickels. That gives you about this right here. Which is plenty, because that's about a 1/4 inch, and when you tighten it down, the silicone will smash against your vehicle, against your van, the roof, and since it's up underneath the entire bracket for your solar panel, all that will be pushed down to make a watertight seal. I hope this helps you out. Like I said, once you get done with this, put it somewhere. It's definitely outside. Give it at least a week and a half, 2 weeks to dry before you cut into it. Don't take any shortcuts. You actually want this to cure. And even if a little bit gobs over the side, it's no big deal. You can always cut it off later when you cut down the pieces the size you need. Alright, that's it for this. I hope this helps you out to make a watertight gasket for mounting your solar panels on the roof of your van. Everyone have a good day.